Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Women of Wrestling podcast here on Ring Bells. It's episode 57. This is Irish Stu Allen. I'm here with Freaky Lee Burton.
Yo.
And we have a guest tonight.
Well, I hope so.
It's going to be a short podcast otherwise, yeah. We have a guest tonight who is going to be on iPPV this weekend, and we're talking about Bellatrix VI. On iPPV, and it's Erin Angel. And this is going to be a really interesting one, I think, because there's not a lot of information online about Erin, despite the fact that she's a 10-year pro and has wrestled in dozens of different places around the world. She's just finished a 22-date tour of the Maritimes in Canada. This is a girl who's done a lot in wrestling, and really there's not a lot of information about her, so we're going to try and rectify that tonight.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that sometimes we go into these interviews and we kind of have an idea about what the topics are and what people are going to say. This one, we kind of don't.
Yeah, we're going to learn stuff today, and hopefully you will too. But yeah, that's coming up later on the show. But before then, let's just have a little bit of a chat first. The fact that this is the first Women of Wrestling podcast we've done in quite a few weeks, but it's not the only audio you've been getting on your iTunes feed. If you've been getting this through iTunes, we started adding the Fight Like a Girl shows to the iTunes feed as well lately. So I think the reason for that, at least as far as we were concerned, was that there's some good stuff in those shows. Some really good interviews, some really good information, some really good guests, and they may as well get the biggest possible audience.
Yeah, so what we've done is we've decided to put it on iTunes because we figure that it's going to have a wider scope of people being able to listen to it. So if you're not listening to it on iTunes, you can just go there. We've got a link to iTunes on every page of our website. It's the little iTunes logo. Just click on that and you can subscribe from there. But we started adding the interviews up. We started off with one at the start of this month with the director of this documentary called Breathe It, which is currently in production, called Priya Sharma. She was telling us about what she's been up to, how far she's gone, and also ending up in Hungary and not really knowing what the hell was going on. So that was a good chat. And then you very recently have spoken to one of the competitors of Anarchy Championship Wrestling's American Joshi Queen of Queens.
Yes, Angelus Lane. She's going to be in competition this weekend on the American side of the pond, like you said, in ACW's Queen of Queens Championship. And this is the thing about Fight Like a Girl. In theory, they're supposed to be shorter interviews, but I apparently am a terrible timekeeper, and I ended up speaking to Angelus Lane for about 45 minutes. However, I can highly recommend it. She was a really fun guest to listen to, and she's got lots of cool stories. She's not long into her career, and she's starting to turn a few heads. But yeah, this is exactly what we mean. That's a really good interview, like the Priya Sharma interview. While we're talking about that as well, you may as well mention the fact that Breathe It, they're looking for contributions through Indiegogo for the documentary.
Yes, so there's still a few weeks of being able to maybe throw a few bit of money their way, and it'll help them with not with lining their pockets or anything like that. It's purely going to be spent on things like expenses because they're hoping to travel all over the place. Like I said, they've already been to Hungary. That was self-financed. They want to go to as many places as possible to make a really good documentary on women's wrestling and the struggles that they have and the successes and everything. So should it all come together, it should be really great. So if you do have a little bit of money sat to one side, just throw it their way.
Meanwhile, on the big wrestling organizations, we're talking about TNA and WWE, we've had a couple of pretty damn good pay-per-view matches recently.
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, and who would have thunk it that one of them had Taryn Terrell involved?
It was an absolute shocker when I watched that match.
Look, Taryn gets a lot of people. A lot of people sort of laugh at the former Tiffany, ECW Tiffany, and the referee, and they find her amusing. But you know what? When put in a position to have a good match, she had a really good match.
Fair play to her. I don't think that's the kind of match you could have every night. I'm not necessarily saying you should do ace crushers off an elevated walkway and land flat on the floor.
She shouldn't, absolutely, yeah.
You really shouldn't have done that once, let alone do it on a regular basis. But it was a really exciting match.
Yes, yeah, and that was then followed up, that match, by Caitlyn and AJ Payback this past weekend, I should say. And from what I've gathered from some of the scuttlebutt, the reason why that match was given time and that those two were allowed to go out there and have as good a match as they possibly could was actually WWE specifically answering back to TNA with regards to the Taryn Terrell Gail Kim match. Like, they thought, okay, let's try and trump TNA. They just had a really good women's match. Let's do the same.
I don't know if it necessarily trumped it. I think it may have been on a par, but it was a different kind of match to judge. Because you know that the Slammiversary match was a lot about spots and the violence. And I guess you could say shortcuts perhaps because there were weapons involved. And like we say, Taryn Terrell isn't exactly the most experienced wrestler on the planet, but did hold her own. The Caitlyn AJ match was more about telling a story and working the match.
Yes. And like I say, it's a long time since we've been able to talk about both TNA and WWE both giving women a chance to have a decent 10-minute or so match on pay-per-view.
Just on a side note, though, away from just the pay-per-view stuff, because I know that's something that should be applauded to both of the companies for actually doing it. But also, I wanted to just say a big thumbs up to Mickie James and her storyline at the moment with her turning heel, because that's just been great. Yes,
the disingenuous babyface Mickie James is arguably, and in fact I would go so far as to say is the best thing that she's done as far as a character is concerned, and since the Trish Stratus angle.
I don't think there's any argument with that. I mean, the only other thing that you could really point to is the Piggy James thing, and that was more about her reacting rather than her being proactive.
Yeah, not only that, but also the fact that was essentially WWE trying to send her a message.
Yes,
and with all of the sort of negativity that suggests as well. The one thing about Mickie James, I'll say, is that when she's given something to work with and something that she can really dig her teeth into, she's really good.
Oh, she's really good.
Yeah. So, for all of the sort of the positivity of AJ and Caitlyn having this great match on Payback, there was an angle the next night on Raw, and you wrote about this a bit this week in the Ring Bells Roundup, which is on the website for everybody to go and have a look at. But the general gist is this. Stephanie McMahon came out and basically cut a promo on AJ, and they went back and forward for a little bit, but Stephanie, whilst also wearing heels that made her look about 5 feet taller than AJ.
She was gigantic.
she left her in no uncertain terms to say that, I can fire you like that. I can take that title away from you just like that. And really, compared to me, you are nothing.
Scooped up all of her heel heat.
Yeah.
Put it in her pocket.
No. Then Caitlyn came out with the other divas. And Caitlyn went to cut a promo on AJ, given what happened the night before. And Stephanie, whilst walking up the ramp, stopped and told Caitlyn, "Don't you ever interrupt me again." And
scooped up all of her babyface fire.
And basically, yeah, like you said, cut her legs off. Now, what I'll say, as far as AJ and Caitlyn's concerned, what happened after that, when Caitlyn came down to the ring and they had a brawl, Big E Langston ended up grabbing AJ, throwing her over his shoulder and walking off, and she's screaming, "You'll never get this." That was all pretty cool. I liked that.
Yeah.
But quite why we needed to have Stephanie come out and assert her dominance over all the other women in the promotion, I don't get it. I mean, okay, it could be the early days of an angle, and we'll see what happens, but it's very much, it's something that actually, of all things, people often accuse her husband of, and that's burying everybody.
The thing is that reportedly it's because there was some kind of incident backstage where somebody interrupted Stephanie and it created a bit of a situation and a bit of awkwardness. So, of course, that has to be brought out onto TV for absolutely no reason that nobody understands, doesn't it? Just to kill everybody's angle.
It's not the first time that a backstage incident has been turned into a on-screen angle or storyline or character with no other reason than just to amuse the person that it's involving.
That's a McMahon family trait, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's more than even just that. I mean, we heard about the story about the unfortunate flatulence gimmick that Natalya had. I mean, like, that was something that happened once and got turned into an embarrassing angle for her, an embarrassing character trait, and that kind of thing does happen with depressing regularity.
The thing is, it just completely derails the storyline which they're going down, which people are actually into.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, as I say, I think the stuff they did after Stephanie left the ringside area was good. I think people will probably still care in the coming weeks, depending on what way they take the storyline. But again, I just don't see why. I don't see why Stephanie had to come out and bury everybody, which is essentially what she did.
Because why not, damn it?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. That's the way we're reading it at the minute, and we'll see how it plays out in the future weeks, if there are any ramifications for the Divas division based on Stephanie. I mean, certainly Vince, Stephanie, and Triple H are starting to get themselves all over the show again, and there seems to be some sort of already a bit of a McMahon family feud building up again, which is something they go back to every few years. And yeah, we'll see. But at the minute, that seemed like a really negative angle to play out.
It was like a turd on your coffee table.
I will take your word for that, Mr. Burton.
I've lived in student houses.
Well, yes. So there you go. So that's essentially what's going on in the world at the minute. But we're going to be back in just a few with our guest. However,
yeah, it's just something that we wanted to bring up. I don't know if you guys will have noticed it by going to the website, but we do have a little advertisement on the right side of the site itself on every page. It's just advertising getting your DVDs from High Spots, and the reason why we're doing this is because it's just looking to keep the website free for everybody else, and also just means that it manages to cut the number of potential adverts that we're going to have, so it makes it an easier visual experience for you. So what we're saying is, if you ever need to buy any women's wrestling DVDs from highspots.com, just click on that link. It takes you straight through, and then buy it from there, and we get a little bit of a kickback, which helps us to keep the site free and to keep it as ad free as possible. If you're not looking to buy anything, that's fine. It's always going to be there. If you just want to not have to go through the site, you can click on it, save the URL to your bookmarks, and then you don't have to worry it again. Buy your stuff as you normally would from High Spots that way, and we get a little bit back for it, and everybody's happy.
Excellent, indeed so. So, without further ado, because we've had enough ado, let's bring on Erin Angel. Okay, and we are back on the Women of Wrestling podcast now with our guest at this time. She is going to be in one of the featured matches this weekend at Bellatrix VI on iPPV. We are talking about Erin Angel. Erin, welcome to the show, finally.
Hi, nice to be on finally. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. No, we thought we'd like to talk to you for quite a while, and it just sort of happened that this was a pretty opportune time to talk to you. I say opportune because not only have you got Bellatrix coming up this weekend, but you've just literally come back from a big long tour of the Maritimes in Canada with Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling.
Yeah.
And first question is, how's the jet lag?
I can feel it. I can definitely feel it. This way, when I got there, obviously I was further behind them, so I had a bit of jet lag when I was over there the first few nights. So, I felt like I was wrestling in the middle of the night, and then when I've come back, I'm wide awake in the middle of the night now, and then I feel a bit in front of everybody since I've come back, but it's okay. It's part of it, and
but you're coping, yeah?
Yeah, just about. I'll try not to fall asleep on you.
Well, I'd like to hope not. But, given that you are all over the place as far as your time zones are concerned, I want to say thank you very much for giving us this time.
That's no problem.
So let's talk about Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. This is a tour you've just done in, like I said, the Maritimes. We're talking about New Brunswick here and Nova Scotia, Canada. What was the makeup of the tour? How many shows was it over how many days?
Well, I went out on the 23rd of May, the tour started on the 24th of May, and I wrestled all the way through until, what date are we on now? I wrestled up until the Friday the 14th of June. So I did 22 days in a row. And then I come back the day, we had one rest day the day before I came back. So I wasn't really up for seeing any of the sights then. We all just wanted to chill out. We managed to have a barbecue on that rest day, which was pretty cool. And then come back. So pretty full on. But I loved that schedule. I loved even not having one day off was fine because I'm doing what I wanted to do. I'm wrestling every day. What more could I ask for?
It sounds pretty intensive, though.
It is, yeah. It's full on, and I think it's really a test of your abilities and your skill to, and also your, what's the word, like integrity, how long can you go for and that, and you go through those aches and pains and stuff in the first week. But I sort of found that my body was like, yeah, okay, we're wrestling, let's, adjust to that. And I adjusted pretty quickly, and any aches or pains I did have, I felt went quicker than they would do if I just did like a one-off show and then I'd maybe milk that, injury or whatever for a week, whereas I could get on with it and, there's another show to do today. So it was that sort of attitude that I think gets you through as well.
So these were 22 shows in 22 different times, is that right?
Yeah, 22 matches, one every day.
So,
yeah.
I mean, what was the travel like then between the shows?
Well, they've actually carried on for one final more week that I couldn't do, and that was where the pretty grueling schedule came in, 5-6 hour drives. But the ones that I did, I think the furthest we went was about 4 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, I think it was, so it wasn't too bad. And then when we were away, we sort of stopped at the hotel for 1 or 2 nights and then come back to the main base, which was in Shediac.
Well, this is quite interesting because usually when we talk about Canada, we're talking about places like Montreal or Toronto or Calgary or Vancouver, or places like that. But these are the Maritime provinces. So we've got Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and these places seem to be a bit more remote. So what were they like?
They were good, they were good crowds. They remember the wrestling from before. Obviously, Atlantic Grand Prix has been about for years and years. Emile Dupree was running it. Some 30 years ago, it was still, it's all sort of happening. So the fans that you're getting are ones that have sort of missed out since, he stopped 4 or 5 years ago, and they've been waiting for wrestling to come back. So they were really enthusiastic and they really wanted it there. It's a bit more, as you said, it's remote. So they've not got as much access to coming inland, and especially Prince Edward Island and stuff like that. So they're really, they're waiting for stuff to go on. They don't have a lot of events and things going on. So when you come to town, it's a big deal, and that's great.
So is it a case of, you say, there's not a lot of live entertainment in some of these places, and that literally everybody in the town goes to the wrestling that night?
Well, everybody knows. I was going to say, I'm not sure that everybody turned up this time, but everybody knows. They're small places, so people talk, and postering and things still work. Whereas nowadays it seems more online publicity and whatever is needed. These guys, they do use word of mouth, and through, obviously this time was the first time Atlantic Grand Prix has toured in 5 years, so people are still being made aware that it's on the return and that they can go and see the wrestling. So this time round, the first time back, was to get people talking and to get it, the word around town that Atlantic Grand Prix is back. And I think we did that outstandingly. Prince Edward Island, we went there 3 times. The first time we maybe had 80 people, the second time 120, the third time 250. Do you know what I mean? People talk, and on such a small island like that, people had heard, it's a really great show, they've got really good wrestlers, you should go and see it. So it built up in just that short period. So it's really exciting to see what will happen in the next months and years with Atlantic Grand Prix, and I'm hoping that I'll be a part of it.
You were saying, of course, that Emile Dupree was the sort of the promoter of Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling for years. Is it still Emile who's in charge now, or is it Renee who's sort of in charge these days?
Well, this time was a mix. It was literally both of theirs. It's the father handing over the business to his son and teaching him. So Emile was very much involved this time. But obviously he's an older gentleman now. So the running around and the actual being at the venues and the, more active side of the roles is all done by Renee, and Renee is going to take over the company. So yeah, he's learning it from his father and he's going to take it over. So keep it in the family.
Renee's someone you've known for a while though, isn't he?
Yeah. I think from when he first came, he came to England in 2007. And then, and I first met him then. And then I went over and I did the last show that they were doing, which was supposed to be Emile's retirement, tour. That was in 2008. So, yeah, quite a while now. And then I'm quite chuffed that, they wanted to bring me back for this time around 5 years on.
Your opponent for the shows was Shanae. I did see... at least some of the pictures on Facebook of one of the shows. I think you seem to be doing a mixed tag with the minis as well.
Yeah.
What was the sort of the tour like for you? Was it mostly singles with Shanae the whole way through, or was it
We did mostly singles, but as I said, we have shows, towns that we were going back to each week, so we give them different shows, which is why, as you said, you saw the mixed tag ones. So there was a bit of variety as well.
One of the interesting people that was on the tour was Ron Hutchinson.
Yeah, legend. What a legend.
Well, that's it. I mean, people might have heard of him recently and might have heard of him through the years as a very famous trainer in Canada. Yeah. He's famously responsible for Trish Stratus. He was her original trainer, also Edge and Christian.
Yeah.
Kim, a whole bunch of different people. And I know that you were chuffed to meet him from what I've heard.
Definitely, yeah. As I said, it was a really great opportunity for me to meet someone who's helped people that, well, Edge especially was somebody that I admired and sort of wanted to, when I was watching wrestling, that's what I wanted to do, and he was a big part of influencing that. So the fact that I've now met the person that brought him in, just, broadens your history and your knowledge of wrestling, and just getting to meet him was amazing. He watched the shows that I was doing most nights and gave me lots of great advice and tips. And obviously Edge and Christian, the couple of months before they were signed, they were over with Atlantic Grand Prix doing the wrestling tour. So it's quite exciting in that respect to think where a tour like that could lead to, or where you could go from it. But yeah, Ron Hutchinson is amazing, a brilliant man, absolute knowledge. There was so much, it's 3 weeks in a row of people talking to you and giving you advice, and my abilities and my knowledge, I feel, has increased so much from those 3 weeks. You couldn't be happier with it, to be honest.
It does sound like it was just a very, very intensive education period for you, that you're just there just absorbing all this information from people who've been around for a long time and, like you said, have passed this knowledge on to other people who've gone on to do some really great things. So, with that coming back, is your head just sort of buzzing with ideas?
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to get to Bellatrix at the weekend. Tomorrow I'm working for All Star Wrestling in Skegness. I'm doing a show there, so I just want to get straight back in the ring now and keep it going. Carry on, like it's good. I'm feeling in a really good place with my wrestling. Obviously, as I said, like body wise, endurance wise, I know I'm fit at the moment to take on the world, and I'm gonna. So Rhia O'Reilly better watch out.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about Bellatrix in just a little bit, but it's interesting. You're still a young woman in your life, but you've been wrestling now for about 10 years. I mean, your debut, from what I understand, was 2003. So, I mean, have you reached your 10th anniversary yet, or what date's your 10th anniversary gonna be?
It would be not yet. July, the end of July, because that was when it was a camp that I started on, and I actually did my first shows on. So on the Haven holidays. So yeah, about July time would be my actual 10-year stint. But
does it feel like 10 years?
It doesn't, and obviously when people say, "Oh, I'm 10 years in, I'm 5 years in," or whatever, it's not really the amount of years that you've been doing that counts, it's the amount of shows. So when I look back to, as you said, 2003, 2004, and probably 2005, even though I was wrestling, I was probably getting maybe one match a month, and not really. I wasn't training school. I'm not like these new school people that get brought through a training school. My training was at shows, before shows, wherever I could get it, really. Wherever I could get a ring up and a spare 2 hours, that was my training time. It wasn't on a Saturday, every Saturday. So it was a bit mixed. But nowadays, obviously, like from then on, the busier I've been, I remember, I don't keep a proper account of my matches, but I found a diary, I think it was from 2008, 2009 or something, and I've counted 110 matches, and I know I hadn't written camps and things down, so that's what makes me go, yeah, okay, I've had a lot of matches, and that's what makes me feel like I'm actually progressing rather than the number of years.
But you
that makes me sound old as well. I don't know.
It doesn't make you sound old.
How old are you then? You should be retiring.
It makes you sound knowledgeable is what it does. But the thing is about when you started is that it wasn't exactly like there was a massive hive of women's wrestling going on. There can't have been that many women for you to train with or wrestle against at that time.
Yeah, there definitely wasn't. When I came in, it was Julia, Sweet Soraya, obviously, Klondike Kate, Lisa Fury, Minx, and there was a few others like Sky and people that were a bit more irregular workers, So I was going to say my first few years, the majority of my matches were with Klondike Kate, and again as a mentor and as a wrestler, she taught me a lot of brilliant knowledge that I feel fortunate enough that I got in there with her, and I must have had 100+ matches with her, and I know a lot of the girls nowadays, that's one of their dream matches, but she's not working anymore, so for me to have had the opportunity is brilliant.
Over in NXT now, you've got the former Brittany Knight who wrestles as Paige, and William Regal on commentary has been referring to her quite a bit as Helen Boots, and that used to be the nickname of Klondike Kate. I mean, she's somebody that I think a lot of people, especially outside the UK, maybe don't have a lot of knowledge about. I mean, for international listeners and people who maybe came into wrestling and never really knew who Klondike Kate was, tell us a little bit about her.
Well, Klondike Kate's been around this business for about 30 years. She was, still today, our international listeners will probably have heard of Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks, Kendo Nagasaki. Those names are the same if you just speak to taxi drivers now over here. They're the names that they remember, the ones that were on, wrestling at 4 o'clock on a Saturday. And that was where Jane was. Jane did all that, so when you look at it in that perspective, she was in the ring with Big Daddy, so that's how far back she goes. That's where she's been and what she's done. She's come all the way through our British wrestling history since then, and I think she is the ultimate mother of wrestling. If you wanted advice, especially the girls, if you want advice, you go to Klondike Kate. Obviously, we've got Sweet Soraya to go to as well. Another person that's been around now for so many years. They just know this industry inside out, and to have those people, and be able to go to them for advice and everything is really good. But yeah, Klondike Kate's been around for that many years, there's not a person that she doesn't know. There's not information that she doesn't know. Yeah.
Fun story about Klondike Kate. I just want to interject this because this might be the only opportunity I get to put this on a podcast. 2005, I went to a show. It's the only Klondike Kate match that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In person, anyway. And I can't remember who she was wrestling. It was somebody who was small and quick. And she took 2 drop kicks and spilled out of the ring to the floor and kind of stumbled to get her balance. And we're in one of those shows where they don't have the ringside barriers. So she stumbles and gets her balance and stuff. And she lands pretty much in the lap of my friend who's sitting next to me. And she's deliberately took her hand and just put it straight between his legs.
Yeah, that sounds like Klondike Kate.
and she gets up, she stumbles, and she puts her body weight just right on his nuts to get up. And then just turns around and she's composed herself. She goes, "Nice package," and gets back into the ring and carries on wrestling.
Excellent.
I was dying. It was the best thing in the world.
What a legend.
Fantastic. Made my day. That was hilarious. Bless you, Klondike Kate.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go back to your actual debut match. It was in a Battle Royal, I understand. Was this something that you knew you were going to do, or was this like, oh, we need someone, you're in the ring?
Oh, well, this was back for Scott Conway. When I very first started, I'd done a training weekend, and he was running a show on the weekend, so it was just like, the guys at the training school, if you thought you were ready to do a rumble, you could go in and, the Battle Royal, you could go in and do the Battle Royal, but no, it was a rumble, because we definitely went in one at a time, because I remember being stood out there, like the countdown going, and me being like, okay, so I'm going out there in a rumble. But yeah, it wasn't planned as such, as I knew I was doing it before the weekend, but maybe during the daytime of that day. I remember I was the only girl in it, and I remember walking to the ring and being like, I'm not sure who I should go after, and you're sort of looking at everybody in the ring already and going, right, what shall I do when I get in there, sort of thing. And as I rolled in, I don't think I even thought to climb. I think I just sort of rolled in under the bottom rope. Somebody grabbed the back of my head and my hair and picked me up, slammed me, and threw an elbow drop on me and all sorts. So I was just...
Welcome to wrestling, kid.
In there, yeah. And I think pretty soon after that, I just got punched straight in the face. And then somebody chucked me out. So that was my initiation to wrestling. Thank you for coming. But no, I was absolutely thrilled with that at the time. I had it on video for a while, on the VHS videos, but I don't know where that's gone. I'll try and find it one day.
That would be fun, actually. You talked a little bit earlier about the camps, and again, like, I'm sort of aware that apart from obviously we've got lots of listeners in the UK, listeners internationally may not really sort of know what you mean when you talk about the camps. I mean, for again international listeners, I mean, this is somewhere where, in theory, mostly families go to these all paid all in resorts, holiday centres, where basically you go
with your
there,
caravan.
You're there for like a week or whatever, and the idea is that you never have to leave the resort because there's live entertainment put on every night by the people who run the resort. And
it's a sandals resort for families,
and often wrestling is one of those live things. And I mean, I know from speaking to many wrestlers around the UK that, the camps, if you work the camps, you can end up working like multiple shows a week. Like, you can work essentially every day. Is that what you got into then pretty quickly, was doing some of those camp shows? Yeah,
definitely. That's how I learned. Back in those days, it was 9 weeks rather than the 6 weeks now. So we'd start like pre-season and end post-season and catch just the latecomers. But now with all the children having to be in schools during term time and blah blah blah, it's cut down to 6 weeks. But it used to be 9 weeks, and I'd say 3 times a week would be like 2 shows. And then on one of the days, we always had 3 shows a day, and that was the hectic one. You'd have one that was like lunchtime, early afternoon, and then an evening and a later evening show, and they were just, they were full on. But on the camps, when you're in a team and you've got like, everybody's got their part on the ring and everybody knows what they're doing, you can get the ring up in 20 minutes, you can get it down in 20 minutes and be on the road. So you can just about fit it in. But yeah, you definitely, like, doing shows in that close, time it makes you so good. So why would you not want to do them?
Well, when we say camp as well, we probably mean it in more ways than one, because we're not talking about a show where you're doing, work rate and moves and things like that. It is a lot about working the crowd, because you're going to have a lot of kids involved in it. So how's that work then? Because I guess that's almost like the art of wrestling as well, being able to try and bring people into the show and get them emotionally involved.
And knowing your audience, yeah. That all. I was going to say, from my perspective, I have always still done as much as I would in any other match. Like, that's maybe where I'm going wrong. I need to maybe slow down a little bit and whack on a hold. But no, I think especially my style and what you said about entertaining the children, especially on the camps, the element of girl power, like a lot of children that are on holiday are girls and they're just sat there, whereas they wouldn't actually go to a wrestling show if their parents had seen it advertised in a hall. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They're just on holiday and they've caught the wrestling and then they've seen a girl, and do you know what I mean? It's all that, the element of surprise for me, and so I like to do all the flashy stuff and and give it my all every time I go in there.
There's limited information about you on the internet in general as far as like your career, and I mean, one of the things that if you do look up Erin Angel on Google or anything like that, it always gives the same names as the people who trained you. People like Drew McDonald, Doug Williams, Johnny Storm, Bill Powers obviously as well. I mean, when we say training, are we talking mostly on the job training here is what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I'll give you my honest evaluation of my training then. The one and only time it's probably ever been described right. I started on the camps and I was working for Phil Powers at the time. He gave me very basic training for a couple of years. I was obviously with him and training with him, and yeah, that was very much you get to the venues early and you train, and then about 4 or 5 years into my camp years, JC Ace came along and joined us on our tours around, and I think he was the one that sort of pulled me to the side and went, okay, let's see what you can do. Let's test out some new moves. Let's put things together. Do you know what I mean? Let's wrestle. And so I think my advanced training, if you like, rather than the basics, definitely came from JC Ace mostly. And yeah, Doug Williams, Johnny Storm. Doug was one of my first trainers that I did like a weekend with. So was Drew. So was Johnny. But then Johnny was also on the camps with us. So he put quite a lot of time into doing stuff with me in the ring too. So yeah, probably Jason, Johnny for anything that I'm still doing now. Do you know what I mean?
So basically everyone online...
All the cool stuff.
Everyone online's got to add Jace the Ace in there as one of your trainers as well. Gotcha.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I just can't... I don't use like the internet very much. I can just about handle Facebook, and I've learnt Skype especially to talk to you guys. So, I can't update the stuff that goes on there. But yeah, that's how I would see it. I had a little bit of training from all of those guys, and the majority of the stuff that I do has come from Jace.
You talk about not knowing a lot about how to use the internet. I mean, we were just sort of saying about your camp stuff and also working for All Star as well. I mean, yeah. You've done that for years, and that's the majority of your career. I think it's fair to say, and yeah. All of those shows essentially go, for the most part, unreported online. I mean, they're not what you would say internet-friendly shows. So a lot of your early career's kind of lost in the mist of time, I guess. So that's why it's kind of cool to at least get to sort of revisit some of that stuff with you today. Yeah,
definitely. Maybe one day I'll write a book.
Maybe. But we want to talk to you about the first time that both Lee and I, not live, but on DVD, saw you wrestle. And you'd have been almost 2 years into your...
oh, dear. Do we really have to talk about this then?
Yeah, because I don't know if you know what I'm going to talk about, but it's
I don't.
it's Queens of Chaos in France.
Oh yeah.
No, that's an interesting...
Well, that was knowing, wasn't it?
That's an interesting reaction. No, because, I don't know, it wasn't our favourite show by any means, but it was the first time we ever got to see you wrestle, on DVD, that is. What did you make of Queens of Chaos as a place to work early in your career?
Wow. Well, for me, that was my first international or whatever booking, out of the country booking. So everything was a bit up in the air. Like, I didn't really know what to expect or what was going to happen. And I remember, luckily we had Sweet Rhia there, who was sort of, again, a bit of a mother hen to everybody. And I was really young. I think I was about 17 or something. So I wasn't really used to, anything that I'd been on previously had been organised by somebody else. So this was my first sort of, place, like, going on my own and, going away and stuff like that without family. So all of that was a bit new and strange. I thought, from what I remember, I liked the venue. It was kind of strange. It was like a big warehouse type thing, like warehouse stroke nightclub, because they sort of had some dark, lights and things like that going on. And they had Kid Cash and they had Trinity, I think.
Yes.
And they had somebody else that I remember thinking, wow, this is quite a big name as well that I was getting to meet.
Sumi Sakai, perhaps?
That's it, yeah, Sumi Sakai. How could I forget her? Anyway, yeah, so all of that, that was all a big deal for me. I don't know. It ended quite badly because Julie, I don't know if you remember, Sweet Rhia got hurt.
Yeah, she did. She got hurt in the Rumble, yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up going in an ambulance after that show, ended up in a French hospital. Obviously, she's in a great amount of pain, neck pain. I didn't know what was going on, and now suddenly I'm looking after her. It's been reversed. The roles have been reversed, and everybody's French. It's nighttime at the hospital. The ward that we went to looked like it had been abandoned. There was just nobody around. All the lights were off. And occasionally I saw like a doctor or somebody in a white coat. So I'm like, can you come with me? Like, my friends are here and she's injured and, what's going on? And so that was all a bit chaotic in the Queens of Chaos. Certainly was. No, but, as my first experience goes, it was all right.
The one thing I kind of remember from that show is just how rude some of the fans were.
Yeah, they were very rude, but I wasn't sure at the time, if that was just how French fans were, used to reacting to wrestlers. Like, I'd not been wrestled in France before, and I don't think at the time there was as much sort of internet access to looking at different countries, the wrestling that goes on and how the fans are and things like that. So I just didn't know if that was the normal reactions that they were giving.
Erin, we're still not sure. We're still not sure, because I know that there was another Queens of Chaos show, and I think the fans were pretty rude on that one as well. It seemed like most of the English words that they were using began with F.
I wrestled a bit for Wrestling Stars in France, and the fans that are coming to those shows are much more families, rather than in Queens of Chaos. It seemed to be adult majority of the crowd rather than families. And the Wrestling Stars crowds are more like what you'd find over here. There's not the F word every other word and things like that. So yeah,
we're not burying the entire
we won't
country
bury France. Yeah. Yeah.
Just the fans who went to Queens of Chaos. Shame on you.
Yeah. Letting down your country on my first visit.
But you have done more travelling as well. I mean, you are, like we're saying, because of the fact that a lot of the stuff you do is kind of under the radar to a certain extent, you kind of miss the amount of places that you've gone and how many stamps in the passport that you've got as well. Yeah,
definitely. And I think I would be the first one to say I'm not the best. Maybe I should get myself someone that can use the internet and just say, ring them up and go, can you put this on and can you put that on? Because the majority of stuff I do, as you say, I don't keep people on the internet updated with. I'm trying a bit more through Facebook. If people got me on Facebook, I try and add where I'm going to be and things like that. But I'm really not very good at it. And yeah, there's a lot of places and things that I've done that probably not a lot of people know.
Erin, if only you knew a couple of guys who ran a women's wrestling website.
Yeah.
There you go. But I mean, like, where are some of the places you have been? I mean, obviously Canada we talked about, and France, but what other countries have you visited so far in your career?
I've been to Switzerland. I've been to India. I've been to Germany, France, Norway, Italy. I don't know, there's loads. Isle of Wight.
Isle of Wight, awesome. The India one is quite interesting because you mentioned some of the other ones, and the European countries and things like that. But you go to India, it's a completely different culture. I mean, tell us a bit about those trips.
Oh wow! As you said, it's just such a different experience. There was pros and cons. I loved it. Absolutely loved wrestling out there, and we wrestled in a stadium that Michael Jackson had performed in. It was a massive, massive stadium, and obviously he had all the bleachers around the edge of this big, I think it was, I don't know, maybe a football or American football field or something like that, and we were in the middle of it, and there was about, I'd say it started at about 5,000 people and then gradually got more because they're like really late night people because it's so hot. The lifestyle is they sort of sleep during the day more and then come out in the evening. So the later the show got, the more people that were turning up to the show. But it was an amazing experience. I'd say the cons were just seeing, the everyday life of India and the fact that there is no in between. It's just I was in a hotel looking out the window, looking at children that are washing in a puddle, and do you know what I mean? Those sorts of things I felt that was quite hard to deal with. I just wanted to scoop them up and take them into my hotel room and give them a shower. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't see how the richer society of India just walk past these people. It's just so different to anything I've experienced before. That was difficult. Apart from that, it was an amazing tour, a really, really good team. And the people that I was working with was actually a South African company that had, just promoted a show in India. So I got to meet a whole load of South African guys that are really cool as well. And obviously that opens bridges, and maybe one day if I'm ever out that way, we can go and work for Thunderstrike. Yeah.
I'm assuming that on a show like that, you're probably going to be the sole women's match on the show, which means you're probably only going to have maybe one or two other female wrestlers on the tour as well. I mean, as far as that's concerned, does that change things for you? Does that make it a little bit more difficult to be able to be around it, considering it's going to be a very, very sort of sausage fest, I suppose?
Nice term.
Oh, lovely description. Yeah, no, to be honest, I mean, you find that on most trips that I go on, there's only going to be one girls' match on the show, so you are, normally one of two girls that are going, but it doesn't bother me, to be honest. I get on with guys. Like, I think guys are quite easy to get on with. A lot of girls around is a far harder time for me. But no, I don't seem to have any problems. I like, just the chilling out. I think you sort of stick to, if you're somewhere that's completely foreign like that, you automatically become a group. Do you know what I mean? Whether you want to or not, you're the only ones that are speaking that language. You've got to communicate, you've got to get on, you've got to, look out for each other. So I think you've already got that sense of belonging. Like the India trip, as I said, I went out there on my own, but from, going around and saying hello to everybody, I felt like, right, this is my pack, this is who I'm with. Do you know what I mean? It's not, you don't feel isolated or whatever.
I imagine the guys must be quite protective of you.
Yeah, I think that's quite a nice thing about obviously being with a bunch of wrestlers, no one's
going to mess with you.
You've got a bit of protection, a bit of backup. But no, the guys that I normally go away with, everyone that I've been away with has been brilliant, and they do watch out for you. Just to give a little kudos or whatever to Johnny Moss, has looked out for me.
Johnny Moss is the sort of guy that if you want to have in a fight, you want to have Johnny Moss with you. The guy
who's going to mess with Johnny Moss?
Exactly, that's the sort of person that you want on your side, and give it big up to him. He was there for me one particular time, and Kenzo Richards as well. The both of them were absolute gentlemen for me.
Just on a side note, for anybody who doesn't know what Johnny Moss looks like, imagine a condom stuffed full of walnuts.
Wow.
Is that not an accurate description?
It is, though. That's the thing. It really is. That's... Oh. Man.
Sorry, if I just throw in the mood, do you want another Klondike Kate story?
You got
I
more?
could make one up.
No, it's fine. Try to get that impression out of my head. Let's... you were talking about being the only female match on a show full of guys matches, and how that's for the most part of your career been the case. I mean, there was the sort of the female wrestling renaissance as far as the Western world is concerned. Obviously, it's always been big in Japan, but as far as the Western world is concerned, sort of the mid 2000s. When I think Shimmer had a big part in sort of kickstarting that in America and over here as well. There's a lot of women sort of get a bit of spotlight, and one of the places that put a lot of spotlight on the women around that time in the mid 2000s was Chick Fight. And curiously, you weren't on any of those shows.
No, I don't really know why either. I think the person I was with, Phil Powers, at the time, he seemed to maybe not get on with Dan. I think that was probably what it was, because I never got an invite, or I never heard if I did get an invite. Sometimes it was like my bookings sort of had to go through him and things, so maybe that was what blocked me. I think once I'd split up with him, like, my wrestling and my opportunities become much broader. I've got a really good relationship with Dan Reed. I think he's a brilliant guy, so I don't know why I didn't work for him back then, but since I have known him, and I've only felt that I've known him since Chick Fight ended, and my later years in wrestling, and obviously he does Pro Wrestling Eve now, and I love that, and I'm on the cards there, so that's good.
Did you pay attention to what was going on in Chick Fight, though, even if you weren't on the shows? Did you sort of did you see a bunch of the spotlight going on some of the women at the time, and what do you think of that women's scene around that time, where you had Jezebel coming through, you had Jetta, and some of those people who sort of really got a lot of publicity around that time?
I think it's great for everybody that did. I wasn't keeping on top of it too much, but obviously the girls you're mentioning, Jetta is fantastic. She always has been, she always will. I'm gutted that she stopped wrestling. She was an asset to the girls' division of British wrestling, but I was I think it was good at the time when it was. I don't really know much about it, to be honest. I have to end it there. I didn't keep on top of it, to be honest, but...
That's fair enough. But, since Chick Fight ended, and you said, since Dan started promoting Pro Wrestling Eve, you've been almost an ever-present on, almost all of the Eve shows since it launched. I mean, what have your experiences been like at Pro Wrestling Eve? I mean, that's given you an opportunity to work these all-women shows that, like you said, you're not used to, but also get to work a whole bunch of different people.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I think in recent years, as you said, there was only Chick Fight back then, but now we've got quite a number of girls' promotions going on, and the opportunities to work with different girls can come up much more often. I've loved the experience of Pro Wrestling Eve, in particular the Ice Ribbon weekend. I think everybody remembers that one as the tip of the iceberg right now, so we're going to have to top it soon. But that was amazing for me. That was the best weekend I've done for Pro Wrestling Eve. I particularly enjoyed the three-way. We got quite good reviews and stuff from that too. So
that was a crazy match. That was you, Tsukasa Fujimoto, and Kaylee Ray.
Yeah, that was amazing. Just to be in there with those two as well. It was a great experience for me. I felt like I learned a ton that weekend just from wrestling with the Japanese girls. It was my first opportunity wrestling Kaylee as well, just in a more close environment. I think we did maybe those four-way things and stuff before, I'm not sure, but that was a really good opportunity, and We got some good exposure out of that. Like quite a lot of people, obviously, with the Japanese girls being there, it was all reviewed and stuff by the Japanese companies too. So we were in some magazines and things for that. So that was great. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't ask for more than that.
Working with the Japanese girls in particular, I mean, what was the language issue like? Did you have any problems with that, or was it the international language of wrestling?
Yeah, I think if you can wrestle, then you don't need language. Do you know what I mean? You don't need it as much at all. Like, I didn't find there was any problems not being able to communicate with any of them. And yeah, when we were in the ring, there's no need to communicate. You just wrestle, and that's all you need to do. So yeah, it's good.
We talked about you wrestling for All Star, and they have their particular style and the sort of atmosphere of those shows. I think probably the complete opposite end of the scale as far as those kind of atmospheres as shows has to be something like ICW's Fierce Females, for example. Now you've done both of the shows so far. Exactly, you've done both of the shows so far, and you've been very well received on them as well. Was that something that you were maybe curious about as you went in?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I'm an all-star girl. You know, it's been that way for me with the family entertainment thing and the opportunities to work over 18 shows. For me, especially, have not been, that often. So going into something like ICW, I was a bit, what's the word? Like, not anxious, but just wondering how they would find my style and me, and how they would take me and whatever. But yeah, I seem to have had a really good reception there. I love it. But to be honest, I absolutely love that crowd. They're amazing. They're definitely worth the 12-hour trip up to Glasgow on the coach.
I remember the first Fierce Female show, and we had the after party, and you came out, you wore this little black dress, and everyone was like, Jesus H Christ! And then you didn't go to bed that night, did you? You just stayed out partying, got on the coach, and went home. Yeah,
we just stayed out. My coach was at 5 a.m, so by the time the show was done and we'd been out partying, it was about 4 o'clock before everyone was like, right, we better leave, and then we were just wandering around the town. I was like, right, I'll go to the coach station now, catch the coach back. So I think I actually got on the coach drunk a little bit, without, and as you do when you're drunk, not thinking about what I'm going to need. And then about 6 hours into the non-stop 10-hour coach journey, I was like, I need water. I really need water. So yeah, I suffered a bit on that first trip back.
Was it a megabus that you were on?
Yeah.
Well, then you're completely fitting in then if you're getting onto that drunk.
Yeah, I thought that was the rules.
Pretty much.
You said to me after the last show, and kind of just what you said there earlier on about how you were so pleasantly surprised that the all-star girl Erin Angel so well received in the more sort of work rate oriented Fierce Females crowd. But of course, Fierce Females is run by Mikey Whiplash, who you've known him for years. I mean, he was all-star for many years himself.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd end up being a cross-dressing hardcore wrestler in Glasgow?
No, I didn't see that one coming, to be honest.
You didn't see that coming?
But to be honest, he's a wrestler. You won't put anything past him. No. I think he's someone who's so brilliantly talented, and I think he worked for All Star for years and years and just felt like he needed new challenges and to do something different. Like, if you do it as one style of show for so long, maybe I think he got, just wanted some new challenges, and moved up to Glasgow, and, from there on he's just progressed and built, and now ICW Fierce Females is an amazing growing company that's fantastic, but from the All-Star days, no, I never saw that coming, to be honest. Even the fact, if you just said back then he'd be promoting a women's wrestling show, just women, I'd have been like, no, not Whippy, Do you know what I mean? Like, it's brilliant. I love it. I love the turnaround of it, and he's definitely a massive asset to have, on side with the women's wrestling in England.
Of course, we're talking about Pro Wrestling Eve and ICW Fierce Females. We've got to talk about Bellatrix as well, which is coming up this weekend on iPPV. And you're going to be challenging for the Bellatrix British Ladies Championship against Rhia O'Reilly.
I certainly am.
You've fought Rhia a couple of times recently before you headed off to Canada. What are your thoughts on Rhia as a competitor, and I mean, what were your thoughts about this weekend?
She's definitely a tough competitor, and I know with it being a title match, it's going to be she's going to bring her A game. But to be honest, so am I. I've wrestled her before so many times. I know her style, and my style, I think I've been able to adapt and change quite a lot. So I'm going to bring a few surprises her way, I reckon. But yeah, no, I think as a competitor, she's going to be a tough challenge, but I want that belt. So yeah, I'm coming on Sunday with everything, and I've just wrestled for 22 days straight, so I'm in quite good condition. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You know, the Bellatrix show this time's got an extra sort of dimension, because not only have you got a bunch of the girls who've been working Bellatrix regularly, but you've got a bunch of girls who've more been known for wrestling in the Pro Wrestling Eve shows, and they're all going to be in the show as well. So it's kind of like a big coming together of like all the top talent around Europe, not only UK but across the mainland of Europe as well. I mean, it's got to be an interesting mix of people.
Yeah, it definitely is. As you said, all the top workers from around are going to be there, and I think it's very good for Bellatrix to be expanding and bringing down, some of the girls from Scotland and things like that to add to the roster, and it makes the company bigger.
Lee, have you got the details to hand? What's the URL you got to go to order this show?
You can order the show at epic-tv.com. It costs you 10 of the English pounds to do so. And also you can find out all the details by going to, checking out their Facebook page, which is Bellatrix Female Warriors, and there's also the Twitter, which is Bellatrix FW.
Beautiful. Now, Erin, you're just back in the country, like when we started. That's what you were saying. You just come back from Canada. You said you're off to All Star tomorrow.
Yes.
You wrestle a lot. I mean, how often? I mean, what's your average? I mean, if you had to average out across a month or a year, like, I mean, how many matches do you do these days? I mean, or how many just on average a week would you say you do?
Well, the last few months I've wrestled like every weekend, so I know. Not including the last month of every day, but before that, every weekend, going back about 6-7 weeks in a row. So yeah, I'm quite lucky, to be honest. I'd say in a month I probably get 8 to 10 shows. So, and especially being a girl, I know with opportunities and that's really good. Obviously, we're a little bit more limited. If you only need 2 girls for a show, and there's however many girls in England now, you've got less chance, if you like, of getting on a show than a male, because they're going to have 4 male matches, whereas just 1 girls match, But yeah, I'm quite lucky.
You say probably other than Saraya, you probably got the most experience as far as matches on the clock now?
Yeah, probably have. Maybe, I don't know about Lisa, because she's still going, and she's probably got 3-4 years on me. But as far as regular work, yeah, I've probably outdone her by quite a bit for the last few years.
And like you're saying as well, there's a real difference between when you debuted and how long it's been since your first match and how many matches you've actually had. And I think the latter is the more important one, like you were saying, because that's where you kind of get your experience in, and that's where you get your eye in. And
Definitely,
I suppose doing 22 matches in 22 days probably helps with something like that as well.
Yeah, just a bit. But yeah, that's what it's all about. It's not really the amount of years you've been doing it, because if you get one match a year and you've been doing it 10 years, are you going to be better than someone that's, been working 3 years but every weekend? It's not, you can't justify it really in years. But the majority of wrestlers, they probably don't count matches. I can't count I can't even begin to think how many matches I must have had in my years now.
What about a rough guess?
I'd say maybe 700, 800.
That
matches.
seems like a fair amount.
Yeah, in 10 years. So
I think you can call yourself an experienced wrestler when you've had about 800 matches.
yeah, I suppose so. I just turned pro then.
Well, yeah, I mean, you talk about turning pro. Lee and I were discussing before we give you a call, just about some of the stuff that we might bring up. And I know, Lee, you were quite fascinated to know about what Erin does when she doesn't wrestle.
Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday I teach 3-year-olds how to swim. So yeah, and I also do like parent and baby lessons, like the baby swimming where you see them under the water and stuff.
That stuff's fascinating, actually, because what is it about that the babies just kind of naturally take to the water, don't they?
Their natural instincts from birth, and obviously being in the womb, they can hold their breath underwater. As they get older, they lose that ability, but you can replace it with things like blowing in their face, and there's certain techniques that you can do so they can still continue underwater swimming and carry on. So, if they do baby swimming, then I can get a child to swim by the time they're 2.5 on their own, which for me, that's a completely different area away from wrestling. But, I absolutely love that as well. Like, that gives me quite a buzz that these kids are so young and I've taught them something that could potentially save their life. So, yeah.
So almost 1,000 pro wrestling matches and saved many children's lives. That's quite impressive.
Yeah. I really am an angel, That's why they call me the angel.
Brilliant. All right. Well, let's finish up then with this. You've done all this in your career so far. You've travelled to all these places that you've travelled, and you've wrestled in all these different places. What's left for you to do? What would you like to do? What are your future plans beyond this weekend?
Beyond this weekend?
Yes, beyond this weekend.
I was going to say that Shimmer is a massive goal. I'd love to go to Shimmer. Yeah, that's a big dream. And Japan, they're the two, best places to go. The US and Japan, and they're the two things that, in my 10 years, I still haven't managed to get over there. And that, I think, when you see other people that have maybe not been around as long doing all that, one, it makes me more determined that I've still got these things to do, and I want to check them off my list and be like get there and do this. I want that as well. So yeah, Shimmer and Japan are the two places in wrestling that I really, really would love to go to. And there's also other things like I'd really like to go to Mexico, or do those sorts of like maybe not so known, but just for experience wise, like almost like just discover like we've got so many promotions in England that international people may not know about, but they're brilliant promotions that you should go to and you can learn from, and there must be thousands of those places around the world. So I'll go anywhere that I could learn stuff. So
no, I think that's great that you, in your 10th year of wrestling, are still interested in going out there and learning different styles and wrestling different people. And yeah, I think that's one of the things that separates good wrestlers and great wrestlers and the ones who aren't really going to make it, because you never stop learning by the sounds of it.
No, you never stop learning. You can learn from every place that you go, and I definitely have learned from every competitor that I've been on with, and each different promotion, and the countries, like they have different crowds and the people work in different ways and tick in different ways, and so those experiences you can't already know them until you've experienced it. So there'll always be something that you can learn in wrestling. Every show is a brand new show, a brand new experience that you're never going to have again, and you'll never have it until that point. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, everything you do, you can learn from.
Cool. Well, I'm pretty certain, given the attitude that you've shown and the sort of desire you have to keep learning, that you're going to achieve those goals at some point, I'm sure, in the near future. When you do them, will you do us a favour and come back and tell us all about it?
Yeah, definitely. Of course I will. Excellent. It's been really good to come on. I'm sorry it's taken so many years to finally track me down and pin me to one night and go, right, we're going to call you.
This has frustrated me, by the way, because
I'm sorry, Lee.
Yeah, I've been like trying to arrange
every
something.
Time I see you.
Years, and then Stu sends you 2 messages and it's done.
It's okay. It's because by the look of you, I think I could beat you up, but I'm not too sure about Stu.
That works.
I'm equating it to the guy who spends all the time putting in the groundwork with his lovely female friend, and then all of a sudden the other guy swoops in with his big car and his Clint thrust, and he just drives off into the sunset, and I'm left there crying.
Oh no, dude, I'm sorry.
No, I'm going to go cry now. That's the end of it.
Well, look, before we start weeping here, we're going to draw a close to this interview. Erin, we've already said it, but we'll say it again because why not? Thanks very much for coming on the show. We're really pleased that you've done it, and we will see you this weekend at Bellatrix, and everyone listening to this can see you this weekend at Bellatrix, and after that, the world is your oyster.
Brilliant. I'll see you at the weekend then, and I'll see everybody else there too. Thank you very much, guys.